a business built on trust, a company with a perfect reputation. But what if it was all a lie? What if, behind the polished image, there was a system designed to deceive? I had spent years building this company, believing in its integrity. Then the complaints started. Customers overcharged, employees pressured into dishonest sales tactics. A growing unease I could no longer ignore. So today, I walked through my own doors, not as the owner, not as the boss, but as a regular customer. No one recognized me. No one knew I was watching. And within minutes, I saw it. The cracks beneath the surface, the hidden corruption infecting my business. But then I heard something, a conversation just behind me. And in that moment, I knew this was bigger than I had imagined. The truth was far worse, and what I would uncover would change everything. I always believed my company was built on trust. I spent years crafting a brand that people respected, a place where customers felt safe and employees felt valued. At least, that is what I thought. Then the complaints started. Not just one or two, dozens. At first, I dismissed them. No business is perfect. Misunderstandings happen. But as the weeks passed, the complaints became too frequent, too similar. People claimed they had been overcharged, misled, even pressured into buying things they did not need. Customers walked in expecting one price and walked out paying another. Refunds were refused. Discounts that were promised mysteriously disappeared when it was time to pay. I asked my managers what was happening. Their responses were smooth, polished, too perfect. "Everything is running as usual, sir." A few misunderstandings, but nothing major. People always complain, but the numbers look great. The numbers! That was the part I could not ignore. If everything was fine, why were sales skyrocketing in certain areas, far beyond what seemed reasonable? How were profits growing, yet customer satisfaction was dropping? The more I looked, the less sense it made. I did not want to believe my own company had turned into something I did not recognize. But deep down, I knew. The reports were hiding something. I needed to find out the truth, and there was only one way to do it. If I walked through those doors as the CEO, people would show me what I wanted to see. Managers would straighten up, employees would follow the rulebook to perfection, and every customer interaction would look flawless. But what happened when I was not watching? I had to see my company through a different lens, not as the boss, not as the owner, but as a customer. So I erased my identity. No business suit, no expensive watch, just a simple outfit, a casual demeanor, and a single goal: to see my company as it truly was. As I approached the building, I hesitated. What if I was wrong? What if the complaints were exaggerated? What if, after all this paranoia, I stepped inside and found everything running exactly as it should? But something in my gut told me that was not going to happen. The automatic doors slid open, and I stepped inside. The first thing I noticed was the atmosphere. It felt off. The employees were busy, but there was something forced about the way they moved. Some had their heads down, avoiding eye contact. Others glanced over their shoulders as if they were afraid of being watched. And then there were the customers. A woman stood at the counter, her voice shaking. She held up a receipt, confusion and frustration written all over her face. "I was told this would be $50, she said, "but you charged me $75. The manager behind the counter did not flinch. His voice was flat, indifferent. "That is just how the system works, ma'am. Prices change depending on demand." Her brow furrowed. "But when I asked about the price earlier, you said it was $50. That is the only reason I agreed." He sighed as if this was a conversation he had had 100 times before. "Sorry, but it is non-refundable." I clenched my jaw. This was not a simple mistake. This was deliberate. I stepped aside, pretending to browse, but my ears were locked onto their conversation. "Please," the woman pleaded, I do not have extra money for this. Can you at least explain why the price changed?" The manager's voice dropped to a whisper, just loud enough for her to hear but quiet enough to avoid drawing attention. "Listen, I am just doing my job. If you do not like the price, maybe you should be more careful next time." I felt my stomach twist. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a system. A machine designed to milk every last penny from unsuspecting customers. And I had been blind to it. I moved deeper into the store, my mind racing. How long had this been happening? How many people had been taken advantage of while I sat comfortably in my office believing everything was fine? Then I heard it. A conversation happening just behind me. Two employees speaking in hushed tones. "Did you see that?" one whispered. "She caught on to the price change." "Yeah," the other muttered. "They always do. But they can't do anything about it." "You think he knows?" I froze. "The boss?" The second employee scoffed. "Of course not. He has no idea what really happens here." A slow chill crawled up my spine. "We have been doing this for months," the first employee continued. "Management tells us exactly how to handle complaints. If someone argues, we pretend to check the system, waste their time, make them so frustrated they give up." The other chuckled. "That woman at the counter? She will walk away in 5 minutes. They always do. They always do." Those words burned into my brain. How many people had been cheated out of their money because of this system? How many trusted my company and walked away feeling scammed? I had heard enough. This was not just a bad employee. This was a business model. A system designed to exploit trust, manipulate transactions, and push profits higher at any cost. And I was done being blind to it. I turned, my heart pounding. I wanted to confront them right there, demand answers, force them to admit what they had done. But that would not fix anything. I needed more proof, more understanding, more insight into just how deep this corruption ran. So I took a breath, steadied myself, and walked toward the counter. "Excuse me," I said, keeping my voice casual. "I have a question about your pricing." The employee behind the counter gave me the same bored, indifferent expression he had given the woman before me. "Of course, sir," he said. "How can I help you?" I smiled. "Let's find out." I picked up an item from the shelf, something small, something easy to test the system with. I glanced at the price tag, $29.99. Simple enough. I walked over to the counter, keeping my movements natural. The cashier barely looked up as he scanned it. The total flashed on the screen, $38.49. I frowned. Wait, that's not right. The tag says $29.99. The cashier didn't flinch. "There's a processing fee and a service charge." I kept my voice calm. "Where does it say that?" He pointed at a tiny line on the receipt, something so small most people would never notice. "It's included at checkout, sir." A perfect trap. They don't tell you up front. They wait until it's too late, when you're already committed, when there's a long line behind you, when you just want to leave. I nodded, pretending to be indifferent. "I see." I handed him the money and took the receipt. My first piece of evidence. Just as I stepped aside, I heard another voice. "Wait, what? That charge wasn't on the sign." A man behind me held up his receipt, his face tight with frustration. The cashier sighed, clearly used to this. "It's an automatic fee, sir. It's applied to all purchases." The man's grip on the paper tightened. That's not what I was told. The line behind him grew longer. People shifted impatiently. Then I saw something interesting. A manager appeared from the back, stepping in quickly. Damage control. "Sir," the manager said smoothly, "I assure you, everything is in the policy. If you have concerns, you can contact corporate." I watched the man's frustration deflate. He looked around, but no one backed him up. That's how they won. The manager gave a polite but firm nod. The customer hesitated, then sighed and walked away. Another one down. Another manipulated transaction. I pretended to check my receipt, lingering near the counter. That was when I heard a whisper. "You're not the only one upset about this." I turned my head slightly. One of the younger cashiers had spoken, his eyes darting around, checking if anyone was watching. I leaned in just a little. "What do you mean?" He hesitated. Then, in a hushed tone, he said, "We don't like doing this, but we don't have a choice." I kept my expression neutral. "Why?" He swallowed hard. "Management pushes us to upsell, to apply hidden fees. If we don't, we get written up. If we question it, we lose hours. They make sure we follow the script." My jaw tightened. This wasn't just a few bad employees. This was enforced, controlled. Before I could say anything, he straightened. The manager had stepped back onto the floor. The employee turned away immediately, his body language shifting. Fear. He had taken a risk even speaking to me. And that told me everything I needed to know. I needed proof, more than just overheard conversations, more than just whispers. Numbers don't lie. So I walked up to customer service, receipt in hand. "Hi," I said, keeping my tone light. "Can I get a full breakdown of my purchase?" The woman behind the counter hesitated. Sure. One moment." She typed into the system. A few seconds later, the screen loaded. She turned it slightly toward me. I scanned the numbers. And there it was. Extra charges, fees with vague descriptions, adjustments that weren't reflected on the original price tag. I pointed at one. "What's this for?" She shifted uncomfortably. "That's, a service adjustment." "Service for what?" She swallowed. "It's just standard policy." I nodded. "Can you print this for me?" A flicker of hesitation. But she didn't say no. Moments later, I held the paper trail in my hands. Proof of systematic overcharging. I stepped away, my mind racing. The employees knew. Some hated it, but they were scared. The managers enforced it. No refunds, no adjustments. Always push for more sales, more fees, more money. And then there were the customers, the silent victims. Most would never notice. Those who did rarely fought back. And the few who spoke up? They were drowned out, dismissed, ignored. This was bigger than just one store. This was an operation. I took a deep breath. I had everything I needed. And now I was going to bring it all crashing down. Everything I had seen confirmed my worst fears. This wasn't a mistake. It was a system. A carefully crafted strategy designed to milk customers out of every possible dollar while keeping employees too scared to speak up. I had the receipts. Literally. I had heard employees whispering about it. I had seen managers step in to silence complaints before they could escalate. But now, I had been in the store too long. Someone was watching me. I felt the shift before I saw it. The energy on the floor changed. A manager, a different one this time, stood near the corner, arms crossed, his eyes locked onto me. I pretended not to notice. I picked up another item, studied it, glanced at the price tag. $19.99. I took a slow step toward another register, careful to blend into the flow of customers. But then, "Hey, you!" I froze. The voice wasn't loud, but it was firm. I turned my head slightly. The manager was moving toward me. My heart pounded. Did he recognize me? Had I asked too many questions? Had the employees tipped him off? I had two choices. Stay calm, act natural, keep my cover intact. Go on the offensive, push back before he can. I chose the first option. I turned, raising an eyebrow. "Me?" The manager narrowed his eyes. "Yeah, you've been in here a while." I forced a chuckle. Didn't realize there was a time limit on shopping. He didn't laugh. You've been asking a lot of questions. The air around us thickened. Employees pretended not to look. Customers shuffled out of the way. I knew exactly what was happening. This was intimidation. A tactic used to make people uncomfortable enough to leave before they dig too deep. I shrugged. Just making sure I'm getting a fair price. He stepped closer. Too close. You got a problem with our prices? A challenge, the kind that bullies use when they think they have the upper hand. I shook my head. No problem, just curious. His jaw clenched as if debating whether to push further. Then, after a long pause, he stepped back. Let me know if you need any help, he said, his voice dripping with fake politeness. Then, just like that, he walked away. I exhaled slowly. That was close. I had almost been caught. And I knew. I couldn't risk staying undercover much longer. I moved toward the back of the store, but I wasn't alone. I could feel eyes tracking my movements. Another manager had taken position near the registers, subtly scanning the floor. Employees whispered to one another, stealing glances at me. I had overstayed my welcome, and now I had to make a decision. Did I gather more evidence, or did I go public, right now? I clenched my fists. Number. Not yet. I still needed more. So I did something risky. I approached another employee. A young woman, barely 20, was folding clothes near a display. I lowered my voice. Do you like working here? She tensed. Her hands froze mid-fold. For a second, I thought she might ignore me, but then, in the softest voice, she whispered, No. I glanced around. No managers nearby. I stepped closer. Why? She hesitated. Then, because they force us to lie. Her voice shook. She wanted to say more, but she was scared. Before I could ask another question, a voice rang out behind me. Excuse me, sir. I need to have a word with you. I turned slowly. The manager was back. Only this time, he wasn't alone. 2 other supervisors flanked him. Their expressions were unreadable. This was a power move. They wanted me to know they were in control. I kept my stance relaxed. Sure, what's the problem? The lead manager folded his arms. We need to know why you're here. Shopping, I said evenly. His lips twitched. You're not just shopping. I smiled. No? You're watching our employees. You're questioning our policies. You're stirring up problems. I tilted my head. Is asking about pricing a problem? He exhaled sharply. If you have an issue, you can contact corporate. Corporate. Their go-to response for making complaints disappear. I nodded. That's a great idea. I'll do that. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a business card. I placed it on the counter between us. Everything changed. The moment his eyes landed on my name, his face drained of color. I had revealed the truth, and now it was time to end this. Customers had stopped shopping. Employees held their breath. The manager slowly picked up the card. His fingers trembled slightly. He swallowed. You're the owner, I finished for him. Yes, I am. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Then chaos. The employees looked at each other in shock. The customers started whispering. The store manager tried to recover. Sir, this is all just a misunderstanding. I cut him off. Is it? I pulled out the receipts, the hidden fees, the proof. Because this looks like a scam to me. More gasps. The employees, they weren't on his side anymore. I turned to the staff. How many of you have been forced to overcharge customers? At first, no one moved. Then, one voice, then another, then another. And suddenly, they were all speaking. A chain reaction. Everything was crumbling. The manager, he was sweating now, panicked, scrambling for an escape, but there was no escape. I had everything I needed: the deception, the lies, the financial manipulation. It was over, and the fallout was just beginning. The moment my identity was revealed, everything changed. The store fell into silence. Customers stood frozen, their bags halfway filled. Employees exchanged uneasy glances. The manager who had confronted me just seconds ago, he had gone pale. I had spent the entire day watching them lie, manipulate, and deceive. Now they knew exactly who I was, and they knew there was no way out. The store manager took a shaky step forward. "Sir, I had no idea you were coming today." I raised an eyebrow. Would that have changed anything? He swallowed. "It's just, there's a misunderstanding here. I can explain." I cut him off. "Can you?" I pulled out my receipts, the extra charges, the hidden fees, the fine print no customer ever saw until it was too late. "Explain this," I said, holding up the proof. "Tell me why my own company is scamming people." The employees behind the counter stood stiff. Some looked down. Others, the ones who had been forced to follow these corrupt practices, looked relieved. But the manager, he was unraveling. He let out a nervous chuckle, grasping for control. "Sir, this is just how the system works." "Not anymore," I snapped. His smile faded. "I'm shutting it down." I turned to the customers still watching. "How many of you have had issues with pricing today?" At first, silence. Then, one voice. Then another. Then another. Within seconds, people stepped forward, holding receipts, pointing at price tags, demanding answers. I turned to the employees, the ones who had been scared to speak before. "Start issuing refunds. Every single customer who was overcharged gets their money back." The employees didn't hesitate. The manager tried to intervene. "Sir, we can't just—" "Yes, we can," I said, "and we will." For the first time, he had no power. I watched as cashiers processed refunds, apologizing to customers who had been wronged. Some customers still looked stunned, as if they couldn't believe they were actually getting their money back. One woman, the elderly lady I had seen earlier, approached me. She reached out and touched my arm gently. "Thank you," she whispered. I thought no one cared. My throat tightened. That was the problem, wasn't it? No one cared. Until now. I had built this company from the ground up. So where did it all go wrong? How had it gone from a business built on trust to this? I turned to the employees. When did this start? They hesitated. Then one of the younger cashiers stepped forward. "It started when management changed the sales policies. They said we needed to maximize profits at all costs. If we didn't push the extra charges, we lost hours. If we spoke up, we got written up." I clenched my jaw. A woman, probably in her mid-40s, nodded. "We were scared. We needed our jobs. So we did what we were told." Fear. That was how corruption thrived. It silenced the honest, empowered the corrupt, and crushed those who tried to fight back. And I had let it happen. That was going to change. I turned to the customers. "I want you to know that what happened here today, it ends now." Murmurs spread through the crowd. I took a deep breath. "Starting today, we are making the following changes. No more hidden fees. Prices will be transparent at every level. No more forced sales tactics. Employees will never be pressured to upsell dishonestly. New management. Anyone who enforces these policies will be removed. Customer first policies. If a price is advertised, it will be honored. No exceptions." I turned to the employees. "And for those of you who were forced to lie, your jobs are safe. No one will lose hours for being honest." I saw some of them exhale, relief spreading across their faces. I turned back to the manager. "You, however, are done here." His eyes widened. "Sir, Pack your things. You're fired." For the first time, he had nothing to say. As I left the store that day, I saw something I hadn't seen when I walked in. Hope. Employees weren't avoiding eye contact anymore. Customers weren't walking out frustrated. For the first time in a long time, my business felt like it belonged to the people again. I had come in expecting to find a problem. I walked out determined to fix it. I walked out of that store with my mind racing. Everything had changed. A business I had spent years building had been quietly corrupted behind my back. But today, that ended. The scams, the manipulation, the deception, gone. But one question still burned in my mind. How did I let this happen? It had been 3 weeks since the day everything changed. And now, the company was unrecognizable. Every hidden fee had been eliminated. Customers knew exactly what they were paying before they reached the checkout. Sales tactics had been rewritten. Employees were no longer pressured to deceive customers just to meet quotas. Refunds were issued. Thousands of customers who had been misled got their money back. Some even wrote in, shocked that we had done the right thing. The toxic managers? Gone. Replaced by leaders who actually cared about ethics, not just profits. And most importantly, the employees weren't afraid anymore. I visited store after store, and for the first time in years, my workers looked me in the eye. Before, they had been scared to speak, scared of losing their jobs, scared of retaliation. Now, they stood taller. They believed in the company again. I had spent so long trusting the wrong people, allowing greed to twist the business I loved. But I would never make that mistake again. I had always believed that good leadership meant trusting your team. But what I learned was that trust alone isn't enough. Trust has to be earned. Trust has to be checked. Trust has to be built on real, honest accountability. I had been so focused on expansion, on profits, on growth, that I had let the core of my business rot. I thought I had good people in charge. I thought our values were being upheld. But I never checked, and that was my biggest mistake. If I had never walked through those doors as a customer, I might never have seen the truth. And the truth, it's ugly, it's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Because ignoring the problem doesn't make it go away. It just gives it room to grow. To every CEO, every manager, every business owner, do you know what happens inside your own company? Do you know how your customers are treated when you're not watching? Do you know what your employees are being told behind closed doors? Because if you don't, then you are failing as a leader. It is easy to sign reports that make everything look perfect. It is easy to sit in a high-rise office and assume the numbers mean success. But success is not just numbers. Success is trust. And trust? It's fragile. It takes years to build. And just one bad policy, one greedy manager, one dishonest system to destroy it. I lost trust in my own company, and I had to fight to earn it back. But some businesses, they won't get a second chance. And they won't deserve one. Because when your customers stop trusting you, you're done. I almost lost my company, not because of bad sales, not because of low profits, but because of greed. Because I had let dishonest people take control. Because I had trusted blindly. But I woke up. And now? Now, this company belongs to the people again. The employees, the customers, the community. And I will never let it be taken from them again. This is what leadership looks like. This is what accountability looks like. This is what real business should be. No more scams, no more greed. Just honesty. Just trust. And it all started the moment I walked through my own doors. As a customer. If you believe in exposing the truth and demanding honesty in business, hit like to support this movement. And if you want more eye-opening stories like this, subscribe, because the next revelation might just change everything.